seniors from the United Nations have gathered, and special envoys from the United States have also gathered at the KICC to make sure that we have this conversation that affects us all, climate change.
Interesting statements made yesterday by our president. He said unfair debt policies are killing Africa. The headline on the Daily Nation today on the front page is "Don't Kill Us with Debt." Addressing a global gathering of dignitaries, President William Ruto decried unfair loan agreements with the West, saying these continue to disadvantage and impoverish the continent. As former U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry lauds Ruto's leadership, he blows hot and cold on climate reparations to Africa. So former Secretary of State John Kerry is now a U.S. Special Presidential Envoy for Climate, and he applauded President Ruto's speech, but the gist of it was basically that Africa pays far too much as far in debt repayment. And I think we've discussed this before, Brian, that firms in the US, especially credit rating firms like Moody's, give African countries poor credit rating, not based on any actual research, but more like arbitrary metrics. And then we end up paying up to 5 times more interest on debts than those countries that are considered lower risk, like European countries, right?
Yes, but I feel like in as much as the conversation is ongoing, we need to also create focus on what Mr. Guterres, who is the United Nations Sec-Gen, and what he said. He talked about this in February, and he talked about how that was in Ethiopia. He talked about how we have been routinely denied an opportunity for debt relief. And it's deliberate that, and it's even systematic that African nations will always borrow, but the interest rates are a little bit too high, and it pretty much changes the conversation on what we have. It's difficult, creates a difficult situations economically for Africa to actually come forefront and talk about some of the global issues. So the financial system has been termed to as dysfunctional and unfair.
Yes.
And I believe that if you create focus on that, it's very easy to know that our President William Ruto was actually touching on the key points that really affect Africa.
Yeah, I think there was a huge applause, I guess, from other African dignitaries within the summit. Of course, it'll be interesting to see if anything comes of it. If either the credit rating system is changed or loans are given at better rates or something of the sort changes. Of course, there's the idea of climate reparations, which is where countries that are the biggest polluters would pay reparations to those who suffer the brunt.
Yes.
But John Kerry, who is now the presidential envoy for climate, was a bit hot and cold. He didn't want to give a clear, yes or no, because I guess always he commit pesa kama haujapewa go ahead uko juu.
It's true, because on one hand he says that words come easy but actions take longer. He talks about how our president has a pathway for us. And and when he was just talking about this, he said, your leadership is palpable. You have a clear path for us. Africa is meeting, Africa is talking, Africa is deciding. But on the other hand, he talked about how it's easy to talk about it, but it's going to take longer than expected. Yeah. So let's just create focus on that a little bit more. And we've seen that Kenya has signed a 1.9 billion green hydrogen pact with the EU. That's our president and the EU having signed and inked a deal that will see the European Union give us 1.9 billion Kenya shillings. It's a grant. That's the safest path. It's an investment in Kenya, green hydrogen industry, and it's going to boost our economy majorly. And of course, I think it's also going to be a contributing factor on how we're going to conduct our agricultural side, because also Germany has pledged to support Kenya to produce green fertilizer. So farmers are going to have a reprieve, and fingers crossed if the hydrogen pact is going to impact us positively when it comes to maneno na pollution and so on and so forth. Just going to bring a lot of change in the country. Let's see how that's going to happen.
We have a very ambitious target of going completely green as far as our energy is concerned by the year 2030. That's only 7 years away. Considering those Vision 2030 itself, it'll be interesting to see how far we can get to that by 2030. We've got some new music now from Kaid. The song is Annabella. Then we'll get Ice Spice and Nicki Minaj with Princess Diana at 24 minutes past 6.
They play it first. Banging out those new tracks louder than anyone.